On an alien moon, a teenage girl and her father embark on a perilous journey in pursuit of valuable gems, with the hope of becoming rich. In a spaceship, C, a teenage girl, gazes outside and spots their destination, a green moon. She goes to her father, Damon, a miner, preparing their things for the moon landing. C worries that they will be the last batch to visit the moon, and if they miss their timing, they could end up stranded there. Damon reassures her, saying they have plenty of time. The next day, they reach the green moon. Damon and C prepare the ship for takeoff. C sets her watch to time their departure. Ready for takeoff, they detach from the spaceship and begin their trip to the moon. Suddenly, a spark occurs, causing their ship to shut down. Damon activates the parachutes after passing through the atmosphere, enabling them to survive the landing. Unfortunately, the malfunction caused the ship to miss their landing spot. So Damon checks their location and sees how far they are from their destination. Outside, Damon and C wear a spacesuit and decide to walk towards their destination. C observes the lush plants and trees, making the moon green in space. After checking their spacesuit, they set off towards their destination. While traveling to their destination, they stumble upon an old dig site. Damon checks it and discovers something valuable. He opens a hole in an alien root, and pours a liquid inside, causing it to emit smoke. He cautiously inserts his hand and retrieves a white pod. They cut the cord and placed it on a surface. As Damon dissects it, he notices C holding the bottle incorrectly. He warns her that if the liquid touches the open root, it will explode. Damon continues to dissect the pod, ultimately revealing a stunning gem known as Aurillac. Damon shares that the gem could fetch up to 10,000 units. C realizes that the gem could cover all their debts. So, she urges Damon to return home. However, Damon discloses that mercenaries hired him to harvest a mine called the Queen's Lair, promising even more valuable gems. Frustrated, C reluctantly follows her father's plan. After mining, C fetches some water and heads back to Damon. Suddenly, Damon contacts her via radio, alerting her that two armed individuals have appeared. So C stealthily returns and checks the situation. Damon encounters Ezra and his partner. Ezra asks Damon's purpose on the moon, but Damon avoids the question. Irritated, they force him down and demand the key of his ship. But Damon fears handing over the key will only lead to his death. Instead, he proposes an offer. He divulges knowledge of the Queen's Lair and reveals that mercenaries hired him to harvest Aurillac gems. So Damon suggests a partnership where they could eliminate the mercenaries and divide the gems evenly. Ezra agrees to the partnership and sets their way to the Queen's Lair. Still hidden, C grabs a weapon and stealthily trails behind them. In an open space, C ambushes them. Damon disarms Ezra and gains control of the situation. Damon checks their bag and finds a locked case. Meanwhile, C is scared and asks if they can leave. Ezra advises Damon to listen to her. But Damon points his weapon and demands the case be unlocked. Ezra reluctantly complies. Damon opens the case, revealing a bounty of Aurillac gems. Suddenly, Ezra's partner grabs his weapon. Damon and C fire him, but the partner manages to shoot Damon, bringing them both to the ground. Seeing C is out of ammo, Ezra grabs a weapon and points at her. Scared, she flees, and Ezra allows her to escape. He checks his partner, confirming his death, and then he hears Damon still breathing. So he ends his life. In the forest, C stops to collect herself and process her father's death. Alone and scared, she returns to their ship. Inside, C turns on the ship and prepares it for liftoff. Unfortunately, the ship is still damaged, preventing her from leaving the moon. Seeking comfort, C listens to her music while looking at a picture of her mother. She checks her watch to see the remaining time before the spaceship leaves. Realizing her limited time, she organizes her things to set out. When suddenly, she hears a noise outside. So she grabs her weapon and points it toward the door. The door opens, so C fires and Ezra is shot in the arm. He then manages to disarm C. Injured, Ezra threatens her for a medkit. C tries to get the medkit but unexpectedly disarms him. Given up, Ezra tells her to either shoot him or aid him. C demands his ship in exchange for his life. But Ezra insists on the medkit first and promises to discuss the ship after. Having no choice, C complies. Ezra uses the medkit to close his wound. After healing himself, Ezra discloses that he doesn't have a ship. Frustrated, C aims her weapon at him. So Ezra proposes a counteroffer. He plans to impersonate Damon to the mercenaries, harvest the gems, and negotiate for a ride on their ship. However, C questions his trust after killing her father. Ezra defends himself, claiming Damon's greed led to his demise. Having no other options, C reluctantly agrees to his plan. They set off on their journey. While walking, C points her weapon at Ezra. Ezra asks for her name, but C remains silent. Ezra insists that trust will eventually be necessary for their survival. During their break, Ezra still experiences pain from his wound. After a while of traveling, Ezra gets fatigued and sits down. C checks her watch and sees 1/3 of the time remaining. Suddenly, they spot someone in the distance. Ezra assumes they're surrounded. So he instructs C to drop her weapon and raise their hands. The stranger runs away. Ezra urges C to follow the stranger, explaining the moon's inhabitants might have a cure for his wound. They pursue the stranger and reach their camp. Ezra explains that his wound is infected and proposes a trade for a cure. The settlers agree but insist on leaving their weapons. Ezra agrees, and they hide their weapons first. After hiding their weapon, they enter the camp. Ezra thanks them for their hospitality and requests for the cure. A boy hands him a medkit and a case of Aurilac gems. The leader proposes to trade the gems for C, making her agitated. Concerned, Ezra asks about their interest in C. The leader reveals they lost their mother and seek a replacement. Overwhelmed, C runs away. She then goes back to retrieve the weapon and continues the journey alone. Later, C is exhausted from the journey and collapses. Feeling defeated, she gives up and accepts her fate. Suddenly, she hears a noise coming from the forest. Curious, she follows it and discovers a tent. She enters it, and Ezra disarms her. C is surprised to see him alive. Ezra offers her food. Hungry, C accepts and eats it. Ezra returns her weapon and requests C's help, explaining that he needs her to amputate his infected arm, to survive. Feeling sorry for him, she helps him. Before the operation, Ezra administers anesthesia to himself and hands C a surgical blade. C begins amputating his arm. While Ezra tries to cope with the ordeal, he loses his arm, leaving him saddened by the loss. C then tends to his amputation, surprising Ezra with her calmness. She reveals her past as a butcher, explaining her composure. After the operation, they resume their journey, and the two bond together, sharing personal experiences and gradually developing a closer relationship. That night, they reach their destination. C checks her watch and sees it's almost time. Ezra and C approach the camp, and a mercenary disarms them. On the way to the leader, they notice a motionless prisoner locked in a cage. They meet the leader of the mercenaries. Ezra introduces himself as Damon. The leader admonishes them for being late. Ezra apologizes, explaining their broken ship caused the delay. He then requests a ride on their ship. But the leader claims no available space. So Ezra persists, leading to a mercenary threatening C's life. However, Ezra emphasizes that they need them to mine the gems. He insists their request be acknowledged. A mercenary offers to make space for them. Given the time constraint, the leader agrees. The leader then directs them to the queen's lair. Ezra starts mining. He opens the root, pours the liquid into it, and acquires the white pod. He dissects it, but he cuts too deep, destroying the gem. The leader becomes irritated, but Ezra reassures him that there are more gems to be mined. Ezra tries on another pod. But he accidentally punctures the gem again. Seeing the leader is losing patience, C volunteers to harvest the gem, but despite her careful efforts, she also fails to mine the gem. Out of patience, the leader calls his men. Suddenly, Ezra cuts his heel and presses his face onto the hole. The mercenaries arrive, and Ezra falsely claims the leader fell in. The mercenary investigates and sees the cut. But before they can act, C pours liquid into the root, causing an explosion. Ezra grabs a weapon, and they try to flee. While fleeing, Ezra stops and shoots one of the mercenaries. Then, the female mercenary fires a powerful weapon in retaliation. They retreat to the forest. Out of ammo, Ezra suggests to distract the mercenary for an ambush. C agrees and tries to distract the mercenary. But the mercenary spots Ezra and starts shooting him. C intervenes, disarming the mercenary. Ezra then rushes to her aid but gets stabbed. But Ezra retaliates and ends the mercenary's life. Weak and wounded, Ezra urges C to leave. C contemplates. But Ezra orders her to go. So she leaves him. On her way to the ship, C changes her mind and grabs a medkit. She returns to Ezra, starts tending his wound and helps him walk to the ship. On their way to the ship, they encounter the prisoner, grateful for the chaos that freed him. Together, they leave the moon using the mercenary's ship, just in time to meet up with the spaceship, ensuring their safe journey back home.